The knock on my truck window came at 2:15 inches the morning. I know the exact time because I'd been staring at the ceiling of the camper shell, counting the hours until the Phoenix sun would turn my makeshift bedroom into an oven. August in Arizona doesn't care if you're 63 years old with arthritic knees and a heart that's been broken in ways that have nothing to do with medicine. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness like an accusation. "Sir, you can't sleep here. This lot closes at midnight." I fumbled with the door handle, my fingers stiff from a combination of age and the chill that somehow still crept in at night in the desert. When I finally got it open, I found myself face to face with a security guard, young kid, maybe 25, with the kind of expression people get when they're not sure if they're dealing with a drunk, a criminal, or just another piece of human wreckage that America had thrown away. "License and registration, please. My name is Walter James Bennett. I'm 63 years old, and 14 months ago I was a retired CPA living in a 4-bedroom house in Scottsdale that my wife and I had paid off over 30 years of marriage. I had $847,000 in retirement accounts, a pension from the accounting firm where I'd worked for 31 years, and a son who I thought loved me. Now I was homeless, sleeping in a 2004 Ford F-150 with a camper shell in a Walmart parking lot, with $156 to my name and nowhere left to go. I handed over my license with shaking hands. The security guard looked at it, looked at me, then his expression softened. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I have to ask you to move. There's a rest area about 15 miles east on the I-10. They allow overnight parking." "I know. I was there last week. Got told to move from there, too." He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I don't make the rules. My supervisor." "It's fine, son. I understand. You're just doing your job." I started the engine, and the guard walked back to his vehicle. I pulled out of the lot slowly, watching the Walmart sign shrink in my rearview mirror. This was my life now. Moving from parking lot to parking lot, like a ghost, invisible to everyone who still had a place to belong. My son Derek had predicted this, had smiled when he said it, actually. "You'll be dead within a year, Dad. Old men don't survive on the streets. You should have thought about that before you refused to cooperate." He was wrong about the timeline. I'd made it 14 months so far, but some nights, when the loneliness hit and the memories of my wife came flooding back, I wondered if he'd been right about the rest. I drove east toward the rest area, the dark highway stretching out before me like a promise I no longer believed in. The radio played some old country song about losing everything and finding redemption. I turned it off. Redemption was for people who still had hope, or so I thought. 3 days later, I was at a free clinic in Mesa, waiting to get my blood pressure medication refilled. The clinic operated out of a converted strip mall, staffed mostly by volunteers and the occasional medical student doing their required community hours. I'd been coming here for 8 months, ever since my insurance ran out and my prescriptions became a luxury I couldn't afford. The waiting room was full. Migrant workers, single mothers with crying babies, elderly folks like me who'd somehow slipped through every safety net America claimed to have. We sat in plastic chairs that had seen better decades, filling out forms on clipboards, trying to pretend we weren't ashamed to be there. "Walter Bennett?" A young woman in scrubs called my name. I followed her to a small examination room where she took my vitals and asked the standard questions. Weight, diet, exercise, sleep patterns. "How are you sleeping, Mr. Bennett?" "In my truck, mostly." She paused, her pen hovering over the clipboard. "You're experiencing housing insecurity?" "That's a polite way to put it. I'm homeless." She wrote something down, her expression carefully neutral. "The doctor will be with you shortly." I waited another 20 minutes. The examination room had a poster about recognizing signs of elder abuse. I'd read it so many times I had it memorized. Unexplained injuries. Sudden changes in financial situation. Isolation from family and friends. Check, check, check. The door opened and an older woman walked in. Mid-60s, silver hair pulled back in a practical bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. She was studying my file with the kind of attention that suggested she actually cared what was in it. "Mr. Bennett, I'm Dr. Patricia Reeves. I volunteer here on Tuesdays." She looked up, and something in her expression shifted. "Walter Bennett, Walter J. Bennett? That's what it says on my driver's license. You were a CPA? Worked at Morrison and Associates in Scottsdale?" I straightened in my chair. "For 31 years. How did you—" My husband was Thomas Reeves. He owned Reeves Industrial Supply. The name hit me like a physical blow. Thomas Reeves. I hadn't heard that name in almost 15 years. He'd been one of my clients in the early 2000s, a manufacturing company that supplied parts to aerospace contractors. Good man. Honest businessman. Dead now, if I remembered correctly. I remember Mr. Reeves. He passed away, didn't he? Around 2010? 2009. Pancreatic cancer. Dr. Reeves set down my file. "Mr. Bennett, my husband talked about you until the day he died. He said you saved his company. Said you found something that would have destroyed everything he'd built. I just did my job. You did more than that." She pulled up a chair and sat down across from me. No longer the doctor, now something else entirely. In 2003, Thomas's CFO was embezzling money. $3 million over 5 years. No one caught it except you. You spent 6 months going through the books, found every fraudulent transaction, and built a case that put that man in prison. You never asked for anything extra, never took credit publicly. Thomas said you just told him, "I'm glad I could help," and went back to your other clients. It was a long time ago. Thomas never forgot. Dr. Reeves leaned forward. "Mr. Bennett, where are you living right now?" I told the nurse. "My truck." "How did a man like you end up homeless?" I didn't answer. Some stories are too long for a medical exam, and some wounds are too fresh to show a stranger, even a kind one. "Mr. Bennett." Her voice was gentle but insistent. "I need you to tell me what happened. There's a reason I'm asking, a reason that has nothing to do with your blood pressure." So I told her everything. It started with my wife Margaret dying of ovarian cancer 2 years ago. We'd been married 41 years. High school sweethearts who'd built a life together, raised a son together, planned to grow old together. When she died, I lost more than a wife. I lost the person who'd been my compass, my anchor, my reason for everything. Our son Derek was 38 when Margaret passed. He'd never been an easy child, selfish streak, entitled attitude, always looking for the angle in everything. But Margaret had been able to manage him, to smooth over his rough edges, to maintain the illusion of a normal family. When she died, that buffer disappeared. Derek was a real estate agent, successful enough to drive a German car and live in a gated community, but always complaining about money, always needing more. His wife Megan was the same. Designer everything, private schools for their kids, vacations that cost more than some people's annual salary. 3 months after Margaret's funeral, Derek came to me with a proposal. "Dad, you're rattling around in that big house all by yourself. It's too much for you to maintain. Why don't you sign it over to me and Megan? We'll add a guest suite in the back. You can live there rent-free. We'll take care of everything." I should have seen it coming, but I was drowning in grief, barely able to get out of bed most days, and the idea of not having to worry about the house, the yard, the endless maintenance, it sounded like relief. "Just sign here, Dad, and here, and here. It's just a simple transfer of ownership. You'll still live there. Nothing changes except the name on the deed." I signed. I was 62 years old, grieving, trusting my only son. The eviction notice came 4 months later. "Dad, we need to sell the house. The market's incredible right now. We'll get twice what it's worth. You understand? But where will I live? We found you a nice little apartment. Very reasonable. You can afford it with your pension and Social Security." The apartment was a studio in a complex that smelled like mildew and desperation. I lasted 3 weeks before my retirement accounts were targeted next. "Dad, there's this incredible investment opportunity. Triple your money in 2 years. But you have to act now. Just transfer the funds to this account." I said no. For once, I said no. That's when Derek's mask finally slipped. "You selfish old man. After everything we've done for you, Mom would be ashamed. Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become. I shouldn't have said it. But I was angry, scared, finally seeing my son for who he really was. Derek smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. You know what, Dad? You're right. The apartment? We were covering part of the rent. That stops now. The car insurance? On us. That stops too. Your Medicare supplement? We've been paying the premium. Guess what stops? You can't. Watch me. He was already heading for the door. You're 63, Dad. You've got maybe 10 years left. What do you even need money for? You should be grateful we're letting you keep your Social Security. He paused at the threshold, looked back over his shoulder. Take care of yourself, Dad. Although honestly, you'll probably be dead by Christmas. He walked out. That was 14 months ago. I lost the apartment within 2 months. Couldn't afford it without Derek's contributions, and my pension alone barely covered food and medication. I lived in a motel for a while, then a shelter, then finally my truck when even the shelters had wait lists too long to help. Everything I'd built over 63 years of life, the house, the savings, the retirement I'd planned so carefully, all of it gone. Taken by my own son. And I'd signed the papers myself. Dr. Reeves listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Bennett, I need to make a phone call. Will you wait here? I don't have anywhere else to be. She left the examination room. I sat there, wondering why I'd told her everything, wondering if it mattered. My blood pressure was probably through the roof now. Maybe that would kill me before the streets did. Maybe Derek would finally get his wish. 20 minutes later, Dr. Reeves came back. There was a man with her. Mid-50s, expensive suit, the kind of leather briefcase that costs more than my truck. Mr. Bennett, this is David Whitmore. He's an attorney. He was also my husband's attorney. I don't understand. The lawyer sat down across from me. Mr. Bennett, when Thomas Reeves died in 2009, he left a significant estate. Most of it went to Patricia and their children, as you'd expect. But Thomas was a man who believed in paying his debts, and he never forgot that you saved his company, saved his reputation, saved his family's future. He didn't owe me anything. I was just doing my job. Thomas didn't see it that way. Whitmore opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. In his will, Thomas established a trust in your name. He instructed me to find you when you turned 65 and present it to you. But the trust had a condition. If you were ever found to be in dire circumstances before that date, the trust would become immediately accessible. My hands started shaking. What are you saying? I'm saying that Thomas Reeves left you money, Mr. Bennett. A considerable amount. The trust has been growing for 15 years through careful investment. As of last month, it's worth approximately $4.2 million. The examination room started to spin. $4.2 million. I was sleeping in my truck. I had $156 to my name. I'd been told I'd be dead by Christmas. That's impossible. Why would he? There's more. Whitmore pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age. Thomas left you a letter. He asked that it be delivered with the trust documents. I took the envelope with trembling hands. Thomas's handwriting on the front, formal and precise. For Walter Bennett, with my gratitude, I opened it. Dear Walter, if you're reading this, then David has finally tracked you down, and I can keep the promise I made to myself 15 years ago. In 2003, you saved my company. But what you really saved was my family. If Jerome's embezzlement had continued unchecked, Reeves Industrial would have collapsed within 2 years. My children would have inherited nothing. Patricia would have spent her retirement years watching everything we built turn to dust. You could have taken credit. You could have demanded a bonus, a percentage, something for yourself. Instead, you just did your job and moved on to your next client. That kind of integrity is rare. I wanted to reward it while I was alive, but you always refused anything extra. I was just doing my job, you'd say. So I found another way. I don't know what your life looks like now. I hope you're comfortable, happy, enjoying your retirement with that lovely wife of yours. But if something has gone wrong, if life has been unfair to you the way it sometimes is, then this trust is my way of balancing the scales. You saved my family, Walter. Let me save yours. Use this money well, not for revenge, but for purpose. Help people who need it. Be the man of integrity you've always been. And if anyone ever made you feel worthless, if anyone ever told you that you didn't matter, prove them wrong. With gratitude and respect, Thomas Reeves. Tears were streaming down my face. I didn't bother wiping them away. Thomas Reeves. A man I'd helped once, 15 years ago, during a routine audit that became something more. He'd remembered. He'd planned for this. He'd been protecting me from beyond the grave. What happens now? I finally managed. Whitmore smiled. Now we get you out of that truck, Mr. Bennett. We get you somewhere safe, somewhere comfortable, while we process the legal paperwork. And then, he glanced at Dr. Reeves. Then you decide what you want to do with the rest of your life. I looked at the letter in my hands, at Thomas's words about purpose and integrity. I thought about my son Derek, probably waking up right now in my old house, confident that he'd broken me completely. He had no idea what was coming. The next 3 months were a blur of attorneys, accountants, and documents. The trust was legitimate, ironclad, exactly as Thomas had designed it. David Whitmore and his team handled everything with professional efficiency, setting me up in a comfortable apartment in Tempe while the paperwork was processed. But I didn't spend those months just waiting. I hired my own investigators. Not to find hidden money or secret assets, I already had more than I'd ever need. I hired them to find out exactly what my son had done with everything he'd taken from me. What they found was worse than I expected. The house, my house, the house Margaret and I had lived in for 30 years, had been sold within a month of my eviction. Derek had pocketed $890,000 and told Megan they'd gotten a small inheritance from my side of the family. He never mentioned that I was homeless. Never mentioned that I existed at all. My retirement accounts, the ones I'd refused to sign over? Derek had a friend at my former brokerage. They'd forged my signature, claimed I had dementia, and liquidated everything. Another $847,000. The friend got 20%. Derek kept the rest. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the life insurance policy. Margaret's life insurance policy, worth $500,000, that was supposed to come to me. Derek had intercepted the paperwork while I was still in shock from her death, forged my signature again, and redirected the entire payout to himself. He'd stolen from me while I was grieving his mother's death. The evidence is solid, my lead investigator told me after 8 weeks of work. Forgery, fraud, elder abuse, theft. If this goes to the right authorities, your son is looking at serious prison time. I thought about that for a long time. Derek was still my son, Margaret's son. The baby I'd held in the hospital 63 years ago, promising to protect him from everything bad in the world. But the man he'd become wasn't that baby. The man he'd become had looked me in the eye and told me I'd be dead by Christmas. Had taken everything I'd built over a lifetime. Had stolen from his mother's memory. Do it, I finally said. Everything by the book. Let the law handle it. There's one more thing. The investigator pulled out a newspaper clipping. Your son's brokerage friend? He's been running the same scheme on other elderly clients. At least 12 confirmed cases. One of them died in a homeless shelter last winter. 91 years old. Korean War veteran. Froze to death 3 miles from the house his kids had stolen from him. I closed my eyes. Edward Mallory. I'd seen him at the shelter once, before I started sleeping in my truck. Quiet man, dignified even in poverty. He'd shown me pictures of his grandchildren, the ones who never visited. What's the friend's name? Brian Westfield. He works at Patterson Financial Services. Add him to the investigation. I want to know every client he's defrauded, every family he's destroyed. That could take months. I have time. I looked out the window at the Arizona sky, blue and endless. And I have resources now. Let's use them. The Phoenix Business Alliance hosts an annual charity gala every November at the Arizona Biltmore. 300 guests, tech executives, developers, the old money families who've been shaping Arizona since before it was a state. This year, the gala had a new sponsor, the Bennett Foundation, established 6 weeks earlier with a focus on elder advocacy and financial exploitation prevention. The foundation's inaugural event? A presentation on protecting seniors from fraud, featuring testimony from victims and their families. The keynote speaker? A mysterious benefactor who'd experienced such fraud firsthand. The invitation had gone out on embossed cardstock, hand-delivered by courier to the offices of Patterson Financial Services. Mr. Brian Westfield was specifically requested to attend as a potential partner in the Foundation's financial literacy initiative. He accepted within 24 hours. Of course he did. A charity gala at the Biltmore meant networking opportunities, wealthy potential clients, the kind of access men like Brian spent their whole careers trying to cultivate. What he didn't know was that my son Derek had also been invited. Separately, through a different channel. A real estate development opportunity, the invitation had said. A billionaire looking to invest in Arizona property. Interested parties should attend the Arizona Biltmore on November 15th for a private presentation. Derek had RSVP'd within 12 hours. He'd even bought a new suit for the occasion. I watched from across the ballroom as they arrived. Derek came first, scanning the room for the billionaire investor he expected to meet. He was wearing an expensive watch. I recognized it had been my father's, part of the inheritance he'd claimed after Margaret died. Brian Westfield arrived 20 minutes later, working the room like a professional, handing out business cards, making the kind of small talk that puts wealthy people at ease. Neither of them noticed me. At 8:30, I took the stage. Good evening. My name is Walter Bennett. And 14 months ago, I was homeless. The room went quiet. Derek's head snapped toward the stage. Even from 30 feet away, I could see the color drain from his face. I spent last winter sleeping in my truck. A 2004 Ford F-150 with a camper shell that leaked when it rained and turned into an oven when the sun came out. I survived on food stamps and the kindness of strangers. I got my medications from free clinics staffed by volunteers. I was 63 years old, with arthritic knees and a broken heart, and I was told by someone who should have loved me that I would be dead by Christmas. I paused, letting the words sink in. I'm still here. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Derek was frozen in place, his champagne glass trembling in his hand. But I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about the thousands of elderly Americans who aren't as lucky as I was. Seniors who trusted their children, their financial advisors, their caregivers, only to have everything stolen from them. Seniors who died alone, in shelters, in alleys, in parking lots, wondering how their golden years turned into nightmares. I pulled out a photograph, blown up to poster size, displayed on an easel beside the podium. This is Edward Mallory, Korean War veteran, retired postal worker, grandfather of 6. He died in a Phoenix homeless shelter last January, 3 miles from the house his family stole from him. He was 91 years old. He froze to death. The room was absolutely silent. Edward's case is being investigated by the FBI's Elder Fraud Unit. So are 11 other cases with the same pattern. The same forged signatures. The same false claims of dementia. The same brokerage employee who made it all possible. I looked directly at Brian Westfield. Good evening, Brian. Brian's face went white. He took a step backward, then another. Brian Westfield, ladies and gentlemen, account manager at Patterson Financial Services. 12 confirmed cases of elder fraud. At least 3 victims deceased. Estimated total theft, $6.4 million. The ballroom doors opened. 4 people walked in, 2 in the dark suits of FBI agents, 2 in the uniforms of the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Brian Westfield. The lead agent's voice cut through the shocked silence. FBI. You're under arrest for wire fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit identity theft. Brian tried to run. He made it about 5 steps before a deputy caught him and put him on the ground. The ballroom erupted gasps, phones coming out to record. 300 of Arizona's elite watching a financial advisor get handcuffed on the polished floor. But I wasn't done. There's someone else here tonight who needs to answer for what he's done. I turned to face my son. "Hello, Derek." Derek was backing toward the exit, his face a mask of panic. Derek Bennett, everyone. My son. The man who forged my signature to steal my retirement accounts. The man who sold my house out from under me. The man who intercepted his own mother's life insurance policy while I was still planning her funeral. "Dad, listen." Derek's voice cracked. "I can explain. You told me I'd be dead by Christmas." My voice was calm, almost conversational. "You said I was worthless, that I only had 10 years left, that I should be grateful you were letting me keep my Social Security." "I didn't mean." Derek Bennett. A second FBI agent approached my son. "You're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and elder financial abuse." "No!" Derek screamed, trying to twist away. "Dad, please, I'm your son. Mom would never. Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become." The same words I'd said 14 months ago. But this time, Derek had nothing to say in return. They cuffed him in front of 300 witnesses. His expensive suit got wrinkled. His designer Watch My Father's watch got confiscated as evidence. His perfect hair fell into his eyes as they led him past me toward the door. "Dad." His voice was a whisper now. "Please. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." "Yes, you did." I met his eyes for the last time. "You meant every word, every signature, every lie. You just never expected consequences." They let him out. The ballroom was chaos. Reporters who'd been invited to cover the gala now had the story of the year. Prominent financial advisor arrested for elder fraud alongside the son of the charity founder who'd exposed him both. David Whitmore appeared at my elbow. That was something. Thomas Reeves told me to use the money for purpose. I did. He would have approved. Whitmore studied me for a moment. "Your son is facing 15 to 20 years. Westfield even more. Are you okay with that?" I thought about Margaret, about the life insurance money Derek had stolen before her body was cold. Thought about Edward Mallory, dying alone in a shelter. Thought about all the other victims, the ones we'd found and the ones we hadn't. I'm at peace with it. Derek was convicted 9 months later. The trial was brief, the evidence was overwhelming, and 3 of Brian Westfield's other victims testified about how the scheme had worked. Derek tried to blame Brian for everything. Tried to claim he didn't know the signatures were forged, but the jury didn't buy it. The judge gave him 18 years. I was in the gallery when the sentence came down. Derek looked at me once, just before they let him away. His eyes weren't angry anymore. They were empty. The hollow stare of a man who'd finally run out of excuses. I didn't say anything, just watched him disappear through the door. Brian Westfield got 25 years. 12 counts of elder fraud, 3 counts of contributing to wrongful death. He'll be 80 when he gets out, if he makes it that long. The Bennett Foundation grew in the months that followed. We partnered with Adult Protective Services, funded legal aid for seniors facing financial exploitation, created educational programs to help families recognize the warning signs. Every month, we helped dozens of elderly Americans protect themselves from the kind of predators who'd nearly destroyed me. I still have my old truck. It's parked in the garage of my house in Scottsdale, a different house than the one I lost, but comfortable, quiet, the kind of place an old man can grow even older in peace. I keep the truck as a reminder, not of what Derek did to me, but of what I survived, what I learned about resilience, about integrity, about the unexpected kindness of people like Thomas and Patricia Reeves. Last week, I was going through some old papers when I found the forged documents, the ones Derek had used to steal my retirement accounts. I held them for a long moment, studying my son's crude imitation of my signature. Then I put them in a frame and hung them in my office. Not as a reminder of betrayal, as a reminder that the worst days of your life don't have to be the end of your story. Sometimes they're just the beginning. People ask me if I miss my son. The honest answer is complicated. I miss the boy he was, the child who used to sit on my lap while I read him stories, who held my hand at his mother's funeral. But that boy grew into a man who would have let me die in a parking lot. Some people aren't worth missing. What I've learned at 64 is this: family isn't always blood. Family is the people who show up when you need them. Thomas Reeves, who remembered a favor from 15 years ago. Patricia, who recognized my name in a free clinic. David Whitmore, who tracked down a homeless man because his client had asked him to. Family is the elderly veteran at the shelter who shared his blanket with me on a cold night, the food bank volunteer who always saved me the good bread, the security guard who let me sleep an extra hour in his parking lot because he could see I needed the rest. Those are my family now. So here's what I want to ask you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Someone you would have given your life for? What did you do? Did you let it destroy you? Or did you find a way forward? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you know someone who's being exploited right now, an elderly parent, a vulnerable neighbor, a friend who's slowly losing everything to people who should be protecting them, speak up. Make the call. Be the person who notices. Because the truth is, none of us know what's waiting on the other side of our darkest nights. Mine was an old client's gratitude and the chance to rebuild everything. Yours might be something else entirely, but you'll never find out if you give up. So don't give up. Keep going. And wait for the knock on your window. It might just change everything.